Okay, today we're going to be shortening the legs on some bar stools, and the method we're going to use may be used on just about any piece of furniture that has four legs. There are, however, some examples of chairs that you wouldn't want to use this method on. This Queen Anne chair, for instance, you wouldn't want to cut off more than perhaps 3/8 of an inch, because when you get up beyond that, you're going to lose the Queen Anne leg, and that's not good. So don't do it on this kind of chair unless you don't care about that. This chair, very similar to our subject bar stools, has a nice flat kind of symmetry to it that will allow this method to work pretty well. So the first thing we need to do is to create the jig, which will allow us to make a nice consistent cut of every leg. Get a flat board. You want to make sure that it's long enough to accommodate the span of the legs. We'll be cutting 2 legs at a time. And also that it's wide enough to accommodate these next measurements we're going to be taking. We will be removing 4 inches from the bar stools that we're currently working on. So we take that 4-inch measurement and add that to the distance between the edge of the plate on the saw and the blade itself, which is 4 5/8. That gives us a total of 8 5/8. So we'll go ahead and make a couple marks, 8 5/8 inches from that edge. And we'll go ahead and clamp our fence in place at those marks. And we will want to secure this board with at least 1 clamp. Okay, we've got this saw set so that it's just going to get through that 1/2-inch board. So whatever the length, thickness of the board is that you use, that's where you want to set that. Please make sure that your power is plugged in, because when you pull that trigger and it's not plugged in, you're not going to be happy. And also that your cord is out of the way so you don't cut that. So starting somewhere away from the back edge, you don't want to cut all the way through this because you'll lose your edge, and you need to have that. You'll see why later. So we'll just make this plunge cut here. Okay, so there we have it. Now we've got our, there's the 4 inches that we'll be cutting off of this, these legs. It's going to be a nice consistent cut. And I can show you. Basically what you'll do is line that edge up with the bottom of those legs. And just clamp up here, clamp here. Get your fence back on where your marks are. And make that cut right through there. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the actual cutting of the bar stool. So now, set the jig in place, making sure that the edge is lined up with the bottom of the legs. Then clamp the board down, 1 on each leg. Bring the saw over and set the blade down into the slot. Make sure you set the blade deep enough to cut all the way through. Notice how slowly I went through in order to get a nice smooth cut. Now remove the jig, turn over the chair, and do the same thing on the other side. This will leave some pretty sharp edges, so I like to knock those down with some 150 or 220 grit sandpaper. Now I'll remove the glides and reinstall them on the newly cut legs. A nice sharp chisel works well to pry these out. It's a good idea to drill small pilot holes so they go in without bending. The last thing to do is touch up the edges. I like to use a flat artist brush and a tinted lacquer from a spray can. So there you have it. That's my method for shortening the legs of a bar stool. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Thanks for watching and keep a lookout for new videos coming soon.